my dear introverted intuitive feeler. I wanted to make this video to remind us all that it's okay to make mistakes. You know, many of us grow up ashamed of who we are. For most of our lives, we've been made wrong to be, you know, the daydreamers, the visionaries, the empaths, and we've been judged for things like not ignoring discrimination, not allowing people to treat each other whatever way they want. You know, we've been blamed for planning instead of doing. We've been shamed for not getting enough done. And so we know that shame. We know that shame. I certainly know the shame of not being perfect. And if you're anything like me, then I think you know what I'm talking about. You know, I feel like this normalized sense of shame for who we are, it sets us up to become very perfectionistic. Then when we make a mistake, because there's already all this pressure to be perfect, we make a mistake, and then the conditioned shame from that we've experienced all of our lives comes through and attacks us. What feels like out of nowhere. You know, all that past pain and shame that we've experienced and swallowed, it gets activated around this one mistake that we make. And then we can feel like there's no way out. And that's the moment. If you've ever experienced that feeling of, I don't know how to get out of this situation because, you know, all these things have gone wrong for me, so there must be something wrong with me. And that's a really dangerous approach to take. You know, this is where we must differentiate between the mistake that we made now and between any past emotional persecution that we may have received from other people. You know, the fact is that I've never met a person who hasn't made a mistake. So it's not really a question of, you know, whether you'll make the mistake or not. You'll make mistakes, right? It's a question of what do you do after you've realized that you've made a mistake, and what do you do when maybe this wave of shame is coming over you from any past interactions of how you should have been. So I have a couple of recommendations from my own tool shed that I've used in my life. And if you're struggling with this, here's what I recommend that you try for yourself. So try if this works for you. So when you're struggling with that overload of shame after you've made a mistake, do this. Remember who you actually are. So don't get caught up in the story. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. Remember who you actually are. So if you follow pop music, you may have seen Beyonce's dropped an album quite recently. And as she says, you won't break my soul. And you know why? Because what others said about me when they marginalized my natural talents of introspection, intuition, and feeling, they were really talking about and marginalizing themselves. You know, they were talking about their story, their standard, their cognitive capacity, not mine. My personality decoding work all around the world has shown me how different we all are. And we can't be compared. You know, I've seen it more than a couple of thousand times with clients and with friends and with students, that you can transform your life to be who you actually are. So get rid of all that stuff that's not you, and then be all of you by setting down the expectations of others. So putting that down, all those expectations of others, and then committing to living your own truth. You know, you weren't born like others. I wasn't born like others. You were born to be you. I don't know if you realize that or if you remember that. You know, you have to remember who you are, and who you are is different. If you don't remember who you are, or if the essence of you have been buried under so much of that persecution and pain, then get some help. Get some help to remember who you are. We need you. And we don't just need you, we need you to be you. The you that you actually are, under all that, when we chip away all that stuff. Making mistakes means really that you're learning. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. You know, a child who's learning to walk, if they stopped after 2 times of trying to walk, and they'd say, there must be something wrong with me, maybe this walking thing isn't for me. Do you ever see that happening? And somehow the world wears us down and we stop trying. And we have to stop that. We have to stop allowing the world to tell us that there's something wrong with us. So making mistakes really just means that you're learning. And if you don't understand that, then you can get stuck in this cycle of shame and self-condemnation. You know, the more you focus on the mistake that you made, the more it activates your past pain, the more ashamed you feel. And now you feel more judging toward yourselves. It's this cycle, it just keeps going. You know, this judgment just leads to more and more shame, and the cycle continues. So let's break that cycle. Let's differentiate a couple of things. If you want to break the cycle, 1, mistakes are an important part of growth. And 2, remember who you actually are. Remember what are your talents, your strengths, your genius, because you have it. But it can get buried underneath all that noise of who you should be. The way forward in breaking that shame cycle really is a decision to stop shaming ourselves. We make mistakes, so what? Why are we the ones whose mistakes are the worst in the world? We're not. Other people make mistakes all the time and we forgive them. Why can't we forgive ourselves? So, the way forward is that decision to stop shaming ourselves for those mistakes that we make and for anything that we've done before. If you have to make amends, that's cool. But don't make your life to be a sign of that mistake. Don't live for that mistake for the rest of your life. The way forward is remembering who you were meant to be as exactly who you are. You're an intuitive person. You're an introspective person. You're a feeler. For crying out loud, how does the world not need more integrated feelers? Only when we remember, only when you remember this, you can see a mistake as an opportunity to learn. Up until the time you remember who you are, you're going to shame yourself for your mistakes. Mistakes are there for us to learn. So when you remember who you are, then you can really allow yourself to learn from your mistakes, to keep growing, to keep actualizing. So who are you? Who are you? Do you remember the beauty with which you were born into this world? Do you remember that? Do you remember your perfection before all that conditioning? Can you tap into that universal flow that states that the world needs you to be you, not to be ashamed of your mistakes? The universe, the world, needs you to remember who you really are. And then learn to be that fully. I look forward to seeing who you are and who you are becoming. Thank you, my dear introvert intuitive feeler, for being here and for becoming. I'll see you soon.